Have you ever looked in the mirror and thought, I don't recognize that face anymore? Not because of the lines or the gray hair, but because of everything those eyes have seen. Because no one tells you this when you're young, but living a long life often means surviving things you never imagined you'd go through. Loss, betrayal, illness, loneliness, and somehow, through it all, you're still standing. Now, maybe you don't always feel strong. Maybe there are days you feel worn out. Maybe you've said to yourself, I'm just tired. Or worse, maybe I'm just broken. But what if I told you that you're not broken? What if the truth is, you're unbreakable? You see, we spend so much time in this world talking about what pain takes away from us, how it slows us down, makes us bitter, wears us out. But there's another side to that story that almost no one talks about, especially not to people over 60. And that's what this video is about. Because I believe that what you've survived hasn't weakened you, it's actually made you stronger than most people will ever be. Not in the flashy, loud way you see in movies, but in quiet, powerful, real ways. Let's talk about one of the most beautiful strengths you've gained, something most people spend their whole lives searching for and still never find. And that's empathy, but not just any kind. I'm talking about deep, rare empathy. The kind that doesn't just understand pain, it recognizes it, feels it, and responds with open arms. You might have noticed it before. A stranger on a bench telling you their life story. A friend who calls when they're in trouble, because they know you'll understand. People gravitate toward you, not because you say all the right things, but because they can feel that you've been there. You don't just nod politely when someone talks about grief or fear. You know what that feels like. That kind of empathy can't be taught. It's something life forges in people who've walked through darkness and still chose not to shut the door behind them. You've sat with your own sorrow long enough that now you can sit with someone else's and not flinch. You may not have realized it, but that's a gift, a rare one. And not only is it a strength, it's a kind of superpower in this world, especially today when so many people are aching just to be seen and heard. But empathy like that can come with a price, can't it? When you feel deeply, you hurt deeply. You carry not only your pain, but the pain of those around you. That's why it's important to protect that empathy. Not harden it, but learn how to care without letting it crush you. And this is where your second strength comes in, something even fewer people ever develop. It's something psychologists call crisis competence. But I bet you know it by instinct, not theory. It's that ability to stay calm when everyone else is falling apart. You've likely noticed it in small ways. A family emergency happens, and while others are panicking, you're the one who's making calls, finding the hospital, calming the kids. Or when the car breaks down, you don't scream or pace. You take a breath and figure it out. You don't collapse at every bad news headline. You've seen worse. Why? Because your nervous system has learned how to survive storms. You've lived through things that would rattle most people. You've faced the kind of heartbreak or hardship that doesn't come with easy answers. And when you've lived through enough of those moments, something incredible happens. Your inner foundation gets stronger. You stop reacting with panic and start responding with clarity. Think of it like this. Most people live their whole lives on smooth waters. So the moment the waves pick up, they capsize. But you've been through hurricanes. You know how to navigate rough seas. And here's what's really powerful. This calmness isn't indifference. It's not that you don't care. You care deeply, but your care isn't frantic. It's wise. It's focused. And it makes you someone that others lean on without even realizing why. But let me tell you something else that happens when you've lived through enough chaos. You start to lose your patience for things that don't matter. You stop pretending. You stop playing roles that don't fit you. You become real, honest, authentic. And that, my friend, is where the next part of your strength shines. You become real, honest, authentic. That's one of the most underrated gifts of getting older, especially when you've been through a lot. You just stop caring about the things that once kept you up at night. You stop wasting energy trying to impress people who never really mattered to begin with. You let go of the masks you used to wear just to fit in or to be enough in the eyes of others. Why? Because pain has a way of burning those masks right off. And when you've stood face to face with loss, regret, or even your own mortality, something inside you shifts. You realize you don't have time for fake anymore. You don't want it in your relationships. You don't want it in your conversations. And most importantly, you don't want it in yourself. Now, this kind of radical authenticity can feel a little lonely at times. You may have lost friends or connections along the way because you no longer play along with the drama or the small talk. But the truth is, the more honest you become, the more you attract people who are honest too. Not perfect people, but real ones. People who've been through it, just like you. You see, there's a certain quiet power in someone who walks into a room and doesn't need to prove anything. Who doesn't have to talk the loudest. Who isn't trying to win approval or attention. That kind of presence comes from a life lived fully, from every tear, every scar, every lesson hard won. You've probably noticed that your tolerance for nonsense has gotten lower over the years. That's not a flaw. That's a sign of clarity. You've seen what matters. You know how precious time is, especially now. So why waste another minute pretending? And there's freedom in that. Real freedom. When you speak your truth, even if your voice shakes, you give others permission to do the same. When you say no to things that drain you, you create room for the things that feed your soul. When you show up exactly as you are, unpolished, imperfect, honest, you become a lighthouse for people who are tired of the storm. People might say you've changed, but you haven't. You've just become more of who you really are. And that version of you? That's the one who can't be manipulated, who doesn't play games, who listens to their gut and trusts it, who values peace over popularity, depth over flash, real over easy. That's not weakness, that's power. And it's not the kind that fades with age. If anything, it sharpens. There's something else that happens when you've survived the hard stuff and learned to live authentically. You stop seeing your past as something to hide. You stop apologizing for the things that hurt you. And instead, you start to see them for what they really are. The reason you're strong. You start to see that the cracks you carry, they don't make you broken. They make you human. They make you relatable. They make you kind. And believe it or not, they make you more beautiful than before. There's a Japanese art called kintsugi. When a bowl is broken, they don't glue it back together and try to hide the damage. Instead, they use gold to fill in the cracks. The bowl becomes more valuable, more treasured, more beautiful because of what it's been through. That's you. You're not the same person you were before the heartaches. And thank goodness for that. You're wiser, softer where it matters, stronger where it counts, and more real than most people know how to be. So the next time you start to think, I'm damaged, or I'm too far gone, or I'm just tired, I want you to pause, take a deep breath, and remember that diamonds don't come from comfort. They come from pressure. Gold doesn't shine until it's been refined by fire. And the strongest trees, the ones that stand the tallest, are the ones with the deepest roots. You have earned every inch of your growth. Every line on your face tells a story of a challenge met, a lesson learned, and a soul that never gave up. And that is something no one can take from you. And the truth is, when you look back on your life, really look, you'll realize something else. You weren't just surviving all those storms. You were becoming someone new. You were becoming someone stronger, wiser, more anchored. There's a story you may have been told, especially if you've carried pain for a long time, that if you've been through too much, you're too damaged to heal. That if you've been broken, there's no getting back to who you used to be. But maybe you're not meant to go back. Maybe you're meant to become someone even better. Let's stop using the word broken to describe ourselves. You're not broken. You've been expanded. You've grown in places most people never reach. You've developed layers of compassion, strength, and awareness that people who've lived easy lives may never understand. You've been tested, yes, but you've also been transformed. And here's something no one tells you. Healing doesn't mean forgetting or pretending it didn't happen. It means you carry it differently. You carry it with dignity, with wisdom, with grace. Like that golden bowl we talked about, your cracks have been filled with something more valuable than gold: perspective. You've learned how to live without guarantees. You've learned to love, even when love was hard. You've stood up again and again, even when you didn't know how you would. You've kept going, even when no one saw the effort it took just to put one foot in front of the other. That is not weakness. That is power. You may not always feel strong, but the strength is there. It's in the quiet way you keep showing up. It's in the steady hands that comfort others. It's in the calm you bring to chaos. It's in the honest words you speak when the truth matters most. You are not fragile. You are anti-fragile. You've been through things that would make others crumble, and you came out with deeper roots and a clearer view of what really matters. And let me tell you, what matters is not how many people approve of you. It's not how much you have in the bank. It's not what the scale says or whether you still move like you used to. What matters is whether you lived true to yourself, whether you loved deeply, whether you left people better than you found them, whether you became someone your younger self would be proud of. And from where I'm sitting, you've done more than survive. You've built a life of meaning, sometimes in the dark, sometimes on your knees, but always, always getting back up. So if today is one of those days where your body aches a little more than usual, if your phone feels too quiet, if your thoughts drift to regrets or missed chances, I want you to remember this. You are still here. You are still growing. You are still becoming. And there is still more life to be lived. Maybe not the way you imagined it, but maybe in a deeper, slower, more sacred way. This stage of life isn't the end of your story. It's the part where you finally get to live it your way. No more pretending, no more proving, just truth, peace, and purpose. And that spark inside you, it's not gone. It's just buried under the dust of everything you've carried. But it's still there, waiting for you to breathe life into it again. So take a walk under the sky. Call someone who makes you laugh. Make a meal that feeds your soul, not just your body. Say what needs to be said. Let go of what weighs you down. And remind yourself, you were never meant to live small. You were meant to shine. Even if your light flickers some days, it's still yours, and it's still enough. If you're watching this and you see yourself in these words, if you've walked through fire, if you've held your breath through the storms, if you've lost more than you ever thought you could, and yet still choose love, kindness, and truth, you are part of something bigger. You are part of the community of the unbreakable. So I want to hear from you. Drop the word true in the comments if this resonated with you. And share your story if you're ready, because there's someone out there who needs to know they're not alone. If this video gave you hope, clarity, or simply reminded you of your own strength, give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to Strong Elderly Life, where we honor wisdom, resilience, and real life every single day. Here's to you, to the life you've lived, the battles you've won, the truth you've earned, and the days still ahead, full of meaning, full of peace, and full of light. Because you, my friend, are unbreakable.